My world shattered the day I opened that email. It wasn't a sudden, cataclysmic event, not like a car crash or a house fire. No, it was far more insidious. A slow,
You
creeping
must never
realization
speak of
that
this.
everything I thought
Some
I
secrets
knew
are
about
too heavy.
myself, about my family, about my
I
very
love you so much, my
existence,
little one.
was a
This can't be
meticulously
right.
crafted
0%
lie.
match.
My mother, the woman who raised me, who tucked me in at night, who taught me right from wrong, had hidden my true identity from me for decades. And it took a simple DNA test, a curious whim, to unravel it all.
What?
I remember
This
that
can't
day
be
with
real.
chilling clarity. It was a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that feels like any other Tuesday. I was at my kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee, scrolling through my inbox. There it was. Your DNA results are ready. My heart gave a little flutter, the kind you get when you're about to open a present. I'd ordered the kit months ago, mostly out of curiosity, a fun little experiment to see if I had any surprising ancestral roots. I envisioned finding a distant Viking ancestor,
I know
or
the
perhaps
truth.
a
This
fascinating
proves it.
connection to
Where
some
did you get that?
obscure
It's a lie.
European royalty.
Then explain it.
What I found was something
The
far
test
more
results are
personal,
in. Your
far
genetic
more
origins are
devastating.
a shock.
I clicked the link, my finger trembling slightly. The page loaded a cascade of percentages and geographical locations. My ethnicity breakdown was mostly what I expected. A healthy mix of Western European, a touch of Eastern European, nothing too out of the
Deception
ordinary.
veils the truth.
But then I scrolled down,
But truth
past the pretty
endures.
pie charts to the DNA relatives section. That's where the first crack appeared in the foundation of my reality. There, listed as a close relative, was a name I didn't recognize. Half-sibling, the text stated, bold and unambiguous. A half-sibling. My mind reeled. I only had one sibling, my older brother, Mark. We shared the same parents, or so I believed. This couldn't be right. There must be some mistake. I refreshed the page, blinked several times, even restarted my browser as if the internet itself had conspired to play a cruel joke on me. But the name remained. The relationship remained. Half-sibling. My hands started to shake uncontrollably. My coffee cup clattered against the table. A cold dread seeped into my bones, a premonition of something terrible. I knew in that gut-wrenching moment that my life was about to fundamentally change. The innocent curiosity that led me to spit into a tube unearthed a secret so profound, so devastating, that it threatened to obliterate the very fabric of my family. I spent the next few hours in a daze, alternating between frantic research and complete emotional paralysis. I clicked on the half-sibling's profile. There was a photo, a blurry, pixelated image of a woman who looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place her. Her age was listed as mid-40s, only a few years older than me. Her family tree was sparse, but enough to confirm she was indeed a stranger. I tried to calm myself, to rationalize. Maybe it was a distant cousin misidentified by the algorithm. Maybe it was a glitch. But the percentage of shared DNA, a significant 25%, spoke volumes. That wasn't a glitch. That was a direct, undeniable biological connection. The only way to have a half-sibling is to share one biological parent. Given that Mark and I share both parents and this woman was my half-sibling, it meant one of two things. Either my father had another child outside of his marriage to my mother, or my mother had another child outside of her marriage to my father. Or, the most terrifying possibility of all, one of my parents wasn't my biological parent. The thought hit me like a physical blow. My mother? Could it be my mother? No, that was absurd. She was my mother. She gave birth to me. There were photos, stories, a lifetime of shared memories. But the gnawing doubt, once planted, began to sprout. I thought back to my childhood, searching for clues, for anything that might have hinted at this seismic secret. And in the unsettling quiet of my kitchen, a few faint whispers from the past began to surface. I grew up in a comfortable, middle-class home. My parents, Susan and Richard, were loving, if a little reserved. My brother Mark was 5 years older than me, and we had the typical sibling dynamic, bickering but always there for each other. Our family life was structured, predictable. Dinners at 6 p.m., Sunday visits to my grandparents, summer vacations to the same beach house. Stability was the bedrock of our existence. Yet, now that I looked back through this new, fractured lens, certain things began to acquire a different hue. My mother, for instance, had always been incredibly private about her past. She rarely spoke of her childhood beyond a few generic anecdotes. Photos from her younger years were scarce, almost non-existent. My father, on the other hand, had a vibrant, sprawling family tree with loud aunts, uncles, and cousins. I felt a strong connection to his side, a sense of belonging in their loud gatherings. With my mother's side, it was always quieter, more contained. Just her parents, who passed away when I was young, and a few distant relatives we saw infrequently. I never thought much of it then, chalking it up to personality differences. My mother was simply more introverted. There was also the physical resemblance or lack thereof. Mark was a spitting image of my father, with his dark hair, strong jawline, and deep-set eyes. People often commented on how much they looked alike. Me? I was a blend, I thought. My hair was a lighter brown, my eyes a different shade of blue than either of them. My mother would often say, "You have my spirit, darling," or "You have your grandmother's hands." Never, "You have my nose," or "You have your father's smile." I brushed it off as typical parental comments meant to highlight unique qualities, but now it felt like deliberate deflection. The biggest red flag in retrospect was my birth story. It was always vague. My mother would say, "It was a difficult birth, darling, a long one." My father would add, "Your mother was so brave." But like Mark's birth, which was recounted with vivid details of the hospital, the doctor, the exact time he arrived, mine was always shrouded in a kind of gentle ambiguity. I never saw my birth certificate until I needed it for my driver's license, and even then I only glanced at it, confirming the names and dates. I never scrutinized it. Why would I? It was my birth certificate. These fragmented memories, once innocuous, now coalesced into a chilling mosaic, painting a picture of something deliberately concealed. The half-sibling on the DNA test was the hammer that shattered the glass, and now the pieces were revealing a distorted reflection of my past. I knew I couldn't confront my mother without more information. The half-sibling, whose name was Sarah, had a public profile on the DNA site. I saw she had a few photos, some indicating her location was a town about an hour's drive from where I grew up. My mind raced. Could she be from the same area? Could our paths have crossed unknowingly? I sent her a message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard for what felt like an eternity. "Hi, Sarah," I typed. My name is my name. I just received my DNA results, and it says we're half-siblings. This is a complete surprise to me. I'm trying to understand this. Would you be open to connecting? I hit send, a knot tightening in my stomach. The wait for Sarah's reply was excruciating. Every ping of my phone sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. Days stretched into a week. I tried to go about my normal life, but it was impossible. My work suffered, my conversations felt hollow. How could I pretend everything was fine when the ground beneath me had evaporated? Finally, an email arrived. From Sarah. My heart pounded. I opened it, bracing myself. Her message was kind, but equally bewildered. "Hi, my name," it began. "I was just as shocked to see your message. I've had my DNA on here for a few years, mostly out of curiosity. I was adopted. I've been searching for my biological family for a long time. My birth mother's name was Susan." Susan. My mother's name. The world went silent. The air left my lungs. My mother, Susan, had given birth to a child, Sarah, and given her up for adoption. A child she never told me about, a half-sister I never knew existed. The pieces clicked into place with a horrifying precision. This explained the half-sibling connection. This explained my mother's guarded past. This explained the vague birth story. It wasn't about my father having another child or me not being my mother's child. It was about my mother having a child, a daughter, before me, before my brother, before her marriage to my father. A child he had kept a profound secret for decades. The betrayal was a physical ache, not just for me, but for Sarah. She had spent a lifetime searching for answers, yearning for a connection, while my mother kept her existence locked away in the darkest corners of her past. I felt a surge of anger, a furious protectiveness for the stranger, my half-sister, who had been denied the truth. I decided then that I had to confront my mother. There was no other way. I called her, my voice strained, but trying to sound normal. "Mom, can we talk? I need to come over." She sounded a little surprised, but agreed. "Of course, darling. Is everything all right?" Her innocent question twisted the knife in my gut. No, Mom, nothing is all right. The drive to her house felt endless. Every mile was a mile closer to the truth, a truth that I knew would irrevocably alter our relationship. When I arrived, she greeted me at the door with a warm smile and a hug, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. We sat in the living room, the same living room where I'd celebrated birthdays, opened Christmas presents, and shared countless mundane moments. Now it felt like a battlefield. I took a deep breath. "Mom," I began, my voice barely a whisper, "I did one of those DNA tests recently, just for fun." I watched her face carefully. She nodded, a slight, almost imperceptible flicker in her eyes. "Oh, those things," she said a little too quickly. "Did you find anything interesting?" "Yes, Mom," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I did. I found a half-sibling." Her color drained from her face. Her eyes, usually so kind and gentle, widened in pure terror. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked like a deer caught in headlights, utterly exposed. "Her name is Sarah," I continued, pushing through the suffocating silence. "She was adopted. She's been looking for her birth mother. And her birth mother's name is Susan." My mother slowly sank back into the sofa, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. A single tear tracked a path down her cheek. How did you find out?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. It wasn't denial. It was a broken question of how the secret had finally escaped its cage. "The DNA test, Mom. It revealed everything," I said, my own voice cracking with a mixture of anger, sadness, and profound disappointment. "Why, Mom? Why didn't you ever tell me? Why didn't you tell Mark? Why did you keep her a secret?" The floodgates opened. My mother dissolved into tears, a raw, guttural cry that ripped through me. She began to speak, her words tumbling out in a torrent of guilt, fear, and regret. She was young, barely 18, she explained, a small-town girl, naive and yearning for something more. She had a brief, whirlwind romance with a young man who was passing through town, working a summer job. He was charming, adventurous, everything her quiet life wasn't. They fell in love, or what she thought was love. He promised her the world, promised to take her with him when his job ended, but then he left, just vanished without a trace, leaving her heartbroken and, as she soon discovered, pregnant. In the conservative society of the late 70s, an unmarried pregnant teenager was a scandal. Her parents, strict and deeply religious, were devastated. Shame, they called it, a stain on the family name. They insisted she keep it a secret. They found a home for unwed mothers in a neighboring state, far enough away that no one would know. She spent months there, isolated, scared, and alone. When Sarah was born, my mother only held her for a few precious moments. She described her tiny fingers, her soft cry, the overwhelming love, and the crushing despair. Then she was gone, placed for adoption, as dictated by her parents, with the promise that it was for the best, that Sarah would have a good life, a chance my mother couldn't give her. My mother was told to never speak of it again, to erase it from her memory, to move on. And she tried. She went to college, met my father, fell in love, built a life, a family. A life built on a foundation of sand, on a secret that festered beneath the surface. She lived in constant fear that Sarah would find her, that the truth would come out, that her perfect life would crumble. She convinced herself that keeping the secret protected everyone. Sarah from potential disruption, my father from a past he wasn't part of, and Mark and I from the shame she carried. But the cost, I now realized, was immense. The cost was Sarah's truth, and eventually mine. "I was so scared," she sobbed, "so ashamed. I thought if I buried it deep enough, it would just go away. I loved you and Mark so much. I didn't want anything to jeopardize our family. I know it was wrong. I know I should have told you. I should have told Sarah." Her confession was raw, heartbreaking. I saw the young, terrified girl she once was, trapped by societal expectations and her own parents' demands. My anger began to mix with a profound sadness for her, for the burden she had carried alone for so long. But the pain of her deception, the feeling that my entire life was a performance, was still very real. "Mom," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "Sarah has been searching for you her entire life."
She deserves to know. We all deserve to know. This isn't just about you anymore. That conversation stretched for hours. My father, who had been out, returned home to find us both in tears. He was initially confused, then angry, then utterly devastated as the story unfolded. He had no idea, not a single clue. His reaction was a mix of shock at his wife's secret and profound sadness for the pain she had endured and the pain she had caused. It was a testament to the depth of my mother's secret that even her husband of over 40 years had been kept in the dark. The next few weeks were a blur of emotional turmoil. My brother, Mark, was furious. He felt just as betrayed as I did, not only by our mother, but by the very notion of our family's history being a fabrication. He struggled with the idea that there was a whole other branch of our family tree we knew nothing about. It was a painful, messy time. Arguments flared, tears flowed, and uncomfortable silences permeated every family gathering. But amidst the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. Sarah. I continued to communicate with her, sharing what I knew, answering her questions about our mother, about our family. She was incredibly understanding, remarkably forgiving. She understood the context of the times, the immense pressure my mother must have been under. Her primary emotion was relief. Relief at finally having answers, at finally knowing her biological roots. We decided to meet. My mother, with great trepidation, agreed to come. It was one of the hardest things she'd ever done. The meeting took place in a neutral location, a quiet cafe. I was there, along with Mark and my father, offering support. When Sarah walked in, she was just as I imagined her from her photo. Warm eyes, a kind smile. And when my mother saw her, a gasp escaped her lips. The resemblance was undeniable. Sarah had my mother's eyes, her smile, the same subtle curve of her nose. It was like looking at a ghost of my mother's past, but also a living, breathing testament to a life kept hidden. The reunion was raw, emotional, and profoundly healing. My mother, through tears, apologized profusely to Sarah, explaining the circumstances, expressing her deep regret and the lifetime of pain she had carried. Sarah, in turn, hugged her, telling her it was okay, that she understood, that she was just so grateful to finally know her. It was a moment of grace, a testament to the human capacity for forgiveness and understanding. Over the next few months, Sarah became a part of our lives. We learned about her adoptive family, who were wonderful people, and had given her a loving home. We discovered she was a successful architect, married with 2 children, our nieces and nephews. It was surreal, exhilarating, and deeply moving. We spent hours talking, sharing stories, piecing together the fractured narrative of our family. Sarah showed us photos of her childhood, and we saw echoes of my mother and her younger self, confirmation of a connection that had been denied for so long. The most profound impact, however, was on my relationship with my mother. The initial anger and betrayal were slowly replaced by a complex mix of understanding, empathy, and a new kind of love. It wasn't the innocent, unquestioning love of a child, but a mature, adult love that acknowledged her flaws, her past, and her immense strength in carrying such a burden. We had difficult conversations, delving deeper into her past, into the years of silence and regret. It was painful, but necessary, like lancing an old wound so it could finally heal. My father, too, had to come to terms with this new reality. He was incredibly supportive of my mother and embraced Sarah with open arms, seeing her as an extension of the family he loved. His capacity for understanding and forgiveness was truly remarkable, and it helped us all navigate the difficult waters.
Mark, after his initial anger, also found a way to connect with Sarah, recognizing the bond of sisterhood that transcended the decades of silence. As for my true identity, it wasn't about finding a different biological parent for myself, as I initially feared. It was about discovering a hidden chapter of my mother's life, a chapter that profoundly shaped her, and in turn, shaped our family. My identity wasn't changed in terms of who gave birth to me, but it expanded to include a half-sister, a new side of my family, and a much deeper, more nuanced understanding of my mother and the secrets she carried. The DNA test didn't just reveal a secret, it revealed a story of a young woman's impossible choice, of societal pressures, of a lifetime of guilt, and ultimately, of resilience and the enduring power of family. It taught me that secrets, no matter how well guarded, always have a way of surfacing, and when they do, they can shatter worlds, but they can also create new ones, stronger and more authentic than before. It's been a few years now since that fateful email. Sarah is a beloved member of our family. Her children call my mother Grandma Susan, a title my mother wears with immense pride and a touch of lingering disbelief. We celebrate holidays together, share family jokes, and support each other through life's ups and downs. It's not always easy. There are still moments of awkwardness, of unspoken histories, but we navigate them with honesty and love. The experience has irrevocably changed me. I am more empathetic, more questioning, and more appreciative of the complexities of human lives. I understand that everyone carries burdens, that not all truths are easy, and that sometimes the greatest acts of courage are to finally speak what has been silenced. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that true identity isn't just about genetics or birth certificates. It's about the stories we tell, the connections we forge, and the willingness to embrace the full, messy, beautiful truth of who we are and where we come from. The secret my mother kept was painful, but its revelation ultimately led to a richer, more complete understanding of my family and of myself. And it all started with a simple DNA test, a little tube of saliva, and a curiosity that dared to look beyond the surface. It revealed everything, and in doing so, it gave us all a chance to truly begin. If you found yourself unexpectedly connected to a hidden past through a DNA test, or if you've been touched by the power of family secrets revealed, I encourage you to share your story in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories like this, or follow my journey as I continue to explore the complexities of family and identity, please consider subscribing to my channel and hitting that notification bell. Your support means the world. And together, we can navigate these incredible, sometimes shocking revelations. Thank you for listening.